You're here because you feel it too. That pull, that unease, that sense that something in your life is stagnant or worse, false. And yet, the idea of change feels like death. Let's not sugarcoat it. Change is a kind of death. It's the death of the persona, the mask we wear every day. Jung didn't talk about change as a simple decision or a motivational quote. He spoke of it as an alchemical process, transformation through fire, and dissolution, confrontation, rebirth. And the fire? It's your shadow. The parts of yourself you buried, denied, disowned. Are you willing to meet them?
Click subscribe to this channel to get more profound insights.
Jung believed that the human psyche was not a linear machine of logic and behavior, but a deep, symbolic ecosystem. At the core of it is the self, not the ego, not what we identify with, but the totality. The self includes the light and the dark, the known and the unknown. So when we talk about transformation, we're not talking about becoming something better. We're talking about becoming something whole. Ask yourself this: have you ever truly accepted the parts of you that you hate? The jealousy, the rage, the helplessness, the manipulation, the fear. Until you do, you're not changing. You're just decorating the mask. I used to think change came from willpower. I thought I could force myself into a new version. But that's not transformation. That's control. And Jung warns us that the ego will do anything to stay in control, even if it means sabotaging our own growth. He described individuation, the process of becoming whole, as a journey into the unconscious. That means we don't just change our thoughts. We descend into the symbolic world of dreams, myths, instincts. We become the hero of our own myth, but only after we've faced the dragon. Do you know what your dragon is? So I went deep. I isolated myself. No phone, no distractions, just me and the unconscious. I recorded my dreams. I meditated for hours. I stared into the mirror until I didn't recognize myself. And the deeper I went, the more I realized I wasn't in control of my own life. My childhood wounds were my father's voice, my mother's fear, my culture's expectations, all wrapped up in the persona I thought was me. But underneath that, there was something else, something ancient, watching, waiting. Jung called it the self, yes, but it appears in dreams as a wise old man, a divine child, a sacred symbol. And it doesn't speak in words, it speaks in synchronicities, repeated patterns. The same kind of person showing up in your life again and again. The same failure repeating, the same dream over and over. These are not coincidences, they're messages, warnings, invitations. The universe is not random. It's symbolic. Have you noticed it? Or are you still trying to think your way through your life? I met something in that darkness. I can't explain it fully. It wasn't a voice. It was more like a presence. It didn't tell me what to do. It showed me what I had become. And it wasn't pretty. I saw the manipulations I used to feel loved. I saw the lies I told to protect my image. I saw the pain I caused while pretending to be the good one. And then I saw something else. I saw that even those parts had a reason. They were survival mechanisms. They were intelligence. Even the monster inside you is trying to protect you. Do you hate it, or do you understand it? That's when the real shift happened. Not when I tried to destroy my shadow, but when I started to dialogue with it. Jung called this active imagination. You sit with the image, the fear, the pain, and you ask it what it wants. You listen, you speak back, you build a relationship with your inner world, and slowly the war ends, not because you won, but because you integrated. That's true transformation, not conquering your demons, but befriending them. You don't change by becoming someone else. You change by remembering who you were before the world told you who to be. That's why Jung emphasized the archetypes, the symbols buried in the collective unconscious, the warrior, the sage, the lover, the trickster. These aren't just characters, they're energies inside you. And when you're stuck, it's often because one of these energies is repressed. Maybe you've killed the lover to stay safe, or silenced the warrior to stay acceptable. But now, they're rising from the depths, demanding to be seen. And when they rise, your life will shake. Relationships will crumble. Careers will shift, and your body may even rebel. This isn't a breakdown, it's a breakthrough. The system is reorganizing itself around a deeper truth. But only if you let go. Only if you surrender the illusion of control. Are you ready to lose everything that isn't real? Because here's the truth. Most people don't change because they don't want to lose what they built, even if it's killing them. They'd rather stay in a known hell than risk an unknown freedom. But Jung tells us the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are, not who your ego wants you to be, not who society rewards, but who your soul is trying to remember. And that path, it's chaos, it's fire, it's beauty, it's mystery, and it's worth everything. So I kept going. I faced the dream where I was drowning. I faced the voice that said I would never be good enough. I faced the silence that came when no one was there to validate me. And I didn't run. I stayed. And in that stillness, something magical happened. A vision. I was in a forest, and I saw a snake eating its own tail, the Ouroboros, the symbol of eternal return, the cycle of death and rebirth. Jung wrote about it often. It's not just a symbol. It's a map of the psyche, of the universe, of your life. Everything you fear is on the path to everything you desire. But you can't skip steps. You can't fake depth. You must be willing to fall apart, to become the cocoon, to let the old identity melt. That's why so many stop halfway. They feel the heat and retreat. But if you commit, if you trust the process, you will emerge, not as a better version, but as a true one. And that truth can't be taken from you, ever. So the question isn't, can you change? The question is, are you willing to die to who you think you are? Are you willing to face your shadow, to listen to the symbols, to surrender to the self? Because Jung's secret wasn't a technique. It was a truth. That transformation is not an achievement. It's a remembering. And the moment you stop running, the moment you turn inward, the process begins. The moment I truly committed to the inward journey, something incredible started to unfold. It wasn't loud or dramatic, it was subtle, like the slow turning of the tide. One day I realized I wasn't reacting the same way to pain. I wasn't reaching for distractions. I wasn't trying to escape myself. I was beginning to live from a different place, something deeper than mind or emotion. But that depth didn't come from adding more knowledge. It came from stripping things away, like peeling off layers of armor I didn't even know I was wearing. Jung taught that the unconscious isn't just a storage of repressed memories, it's a living, breathing intelligence. It's trying to communicate with us all the time, through dreams, through moods, through sudden inspiration or even illness. Have you ever had a dream so vivid it lingered for weeks? Or a feeling you couldn't explain that turned out to be a warning? That's not just your brain firing randomly. That's the unconscious guiding you toward wholeness. But we're so trained to ignore it. We think logic is the only truth. But the soul speaks in symbols. This is why change doesn't happen from the outside in. You can listen to motivational speeches for years and still feel stuck. You can go to therapy and gain insight, but never actually shift. Why? Because you haven't made contact with the symbolic world. You haven't descended. And Jung makes it clear the descent must come first. You must go into the underworld of yourself, but like the myth of Inanna or Orpheus or Christ's descent into hell. Every spiritual tradition mirrors this same truth. Transformation begins in darkness. So I asked myself, what am I afraid to feel? What emotion have I locked away in the dungeon of my psyche? The answer came slowly. Grief. Not just for people or events. Grief for who I never became. Grief for the parts of me I silenced to survive. Grief for the moments I betrayed myself to be liked. And that grief was massive. It sat in my chest like a stone. But when I allowed it, when I didn't run, it began to change me. It softened me. It humbled me. And it opened a door. That door led to something Jung called the anima or animus, the inner opposite. If you're a man, the anima is your internal feminine. If you're a woman, the animus is your internal masculine. This isn't gender, it's energy. It's the repressed side of your psychic polarity. And until you integrate it, you'll keep projecting it onto the people you love. You'll keep chasing what you haven't accepted in yourself. That's why relationships become mirrors. Ever wonder why you keep attracting the same kind of person? It's not fate. It's your unconscious trying to show you what you've disowned. So I did the work. I met my inner feminine. She wasn't soft and sweet. She was fierce, wild, untamed. She showed me how I had rejected my vulnerability because I thought strength meant control. She showed me how I had buried my intuition under layers of performance. And when I began to honor her, something changed. My external relationships began to shift. I wasn't trying to prove myself anymore. I was listening, I was feeling, I was allowing. And in that space, real intimacy became possible. But the deeper I went, the more I realized integration isn't a one-time thing. It's a cycle. Jung's model of individuation isn't a straight line, it's a spiral. You revisit the same themes, but from a higher level each time. The ego dies again and again, not in a brutal way, but in a liberating one. Each time you surrender, you become more whole. But only if you're honest, only if you're willing to see what you don't want to see. So I ask you, what truth are you not ready to look at? And what would happen if you finally did? One night, after weeks of dream work, I had a vision. I was standing in a cathedral of light. There were no walls, just pure presence, and in the center was a mirror. I walked up to it, expecting to see myself. But I didn't. I saw every version of me, child, teen, adult. I saw the angry one, the depressed one, the arrogant one, the ashamed one. And in that moment I saw that they were all still alive in me. Not as problems, but as parts of the whole. I was not one identity. I was a symphony. Oh, that realization cracked me open. You are not your thoughts. You are not your emotions. You are not the story you tell yourself. You are the awareness behind it all. And that awareness, Jung calls it the self, is trying to emerge. But it can't emerge while the ego is in the way. That's why life keeps breaking us. Not to punish us, but to clear the path. Every heartbreak, every failure, every dark night is an invitation to let go, to stop clinging to who you think you should be, and to start listening to who you truly are. And here's the paradox: the more you let go, the more you become. Not in the sense of gaining more, but in the sense of uncovering what's already there. Jung often said that the goal is not perfection, but wholeness. And that means embracing your contradictions, holding the tension between opposites, being both powerful and vulnerable, both light and dark. That's maturity. That's depth. That's freedom. Can you hold space for your own paradox? Or are you still trying to be one thing? So I kept going. I let the symbols guide me. I followed the thread of synchronicity. And one day, I found myself in front of a tree, just a tree. But something about it felt sacred. I sat under it for hours in silence. And in that silence, I felt the presence of everything: my ancestors, my inner child, the future me, the eternal now. It felt like I wasn't separate anymore. I was part of the great unfolding. And in that moment I knew change isn't something we do, it's something we allow. All this time I was trying to fix myself, to improve, to become. But the self doesn't want improvement. It wants embodiment. It wants you here, now, fully. And to do that, you have to stop chasing and start listening. You have to trust the process, even when it looks like nothing is happening, even when it feels like you're going backward. Because in the unconscious, nothing is linear, and everything is symbolic. And the darkest moment often comes before the deepest breakthrough. So here we are, you and me, two souls on the edge of transformation, not because we've figured it out, but because we're willing to face it. And that's the secret Jung never put in a formula. That willingness is the key. Not certainty, not control, just the courage to face what's inside. So I leave you with a question: what are you willing to surrender for the sake of your own wholeness? There's a threshold, and once you cross it, there's no going back. Not because something external changes, but because you're no longer the same person who walked into the fire. You've seen too much, you've felt too much. The illusion has cracked, and what's left is something raw, authentic, and terrifyingly free. Jung's path of individuation doesn't promise comfort, it promises truth. And once truth is awakened in you, you'll never be satisfied with the surface again. You'll crave depth, you'll crave meaning, you'll crave the real. But beware, freedom has a price. The moment you start speaking and living from that deeper place, the world around you may resist. People may not understand you. They might call you lost, too intense, too different. And that's okay. Jung said, the privilege of a lifetime is to become who you truly are. He didn't say it would be accepted. He didn't say the world would cheer. He said it's a privilege, because most people never even try. They live and die as masks, but not you, not anymore. Freedom means responsibility. Responsibility for your own projections, or for your patterns, for your pain. You can no longer blame your parents, your past, your partner, because now you see it all as part of a greater design. Every wound was a doorway. Every trigger was a teacher. Every breakdown was a sacred initiation. But you don't need to forgive, because you realize there's nothing to forgive. Everything was orchestrated for your awakening. But can you see that? Can you look at your worst moment and say thank you? This is where Jung's work becomes not just theory, but sacred practice. Archetypes aren't just interesting ideas, they're living forces. The shadow, the self, the anima, the wise old man, they are all aspects of your inner world waiting to be integrated. And when you start living in relationship with them, your life becomes a myth. No longer a series of random events, but a meaningful journey. Every challenge becomes an initiation. Every person, a mirror. Every choice, a step closer to the self. That's the essence of transformation. Not becoming someone else, but finally coming home to who you've always been. I want you to pause here and really feel into this. What if your life isn't happening to you, but through you? What if every moment is a dialogue between you and the unconscious? What if your symptoms, your failures, your confusion aren't problems, but messages? Are you listening, or are you still trying to control the narrative? The ego wants to fix. The self wants to reveal. Which one are you following? There's a moment in every true transformation when you feel like you're dying, because a part of you is. The part that was built for survival. The part that was built to be loved by others, but never loved itself. And that death is sacred. That death is necessary. Jung didn't tell us to avoid it, he told us to go through it. Because only in that inner crucifixion does the resurrection happen. Only when the ego collapses can the self emerge. You might feel like you're losing everything. Friends, dreams, even your sense of identity. But let me ask you something, what if that's not loss? What if that's clearing? What if the universe is removing everything that no longer aligns with your soul's blueprint? Not as punishment, as preparation. So when you feel like everything is falling apart, ask yourself, what is trying to come together that I can't yet see? I remember one night, I was in total despair. Everything externally looked fine, but inside I felt empty, lost. I cried out, in a whisper, not a scream, "Who am I now?" And the silence that followed wasn't empty. It was full of presence, full of knowing. And for the first time, I realized that I wasn't that voice in my head. I wasn't my story. I was the awareness behind it all. And in that awareness, there was peace. Not the kind of peace you chase. The kind of peace that arises when there's nothing left to run from. Jung said, until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. That line is the key to everything. Because most of us are being driven by forces we don't understand. Childhood imprints, cultural conditioning, ancestral trauma. And we think we're choosing, but we're not. We're reacting, we're repeating, we're reliving. That's not freedom. That's programming. And the only way to break the cycle is to go inward, to face the unconscious, to bring light to the dark. So how do you do that? Practically. Start with your dreams. Write them down. Don't try to analyze them intellectually. Feel them. Let them speak to you. Then look at your triggers. What makes you angry, jealous, afraid? Those are your gold mines. They show you where you're still unconscious, where you're still split. Then practice active imagination. Talk to the parts of yourself you usually ignore. The scared child, the angry teen, the lost adult. Listen, validate, integrate. This isn't about fixing yourself. It's about loving yourself enough to stop hiding. Because when the unconscious becomes conscious, you no longer live in reaction, you live in relationship. With yourself, with others, with the world. And that relationship is alive, ever-changing. That's why Jung never gave people a formula. He gave them a process, and that process is alive in you right now. The only question is, are you willing to trust it? You may never feel fully ready. That's okay. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It's the willingness to move anyway, to descend, to feel, to break open. And when you do, you'll discover something miraculous. The thing you feared the most, that you're broken, unlovable, too much, is the very thing that will set you free. Because your deepest wound is also your deepest portal into truth, into beauty, into soul. You are not here to play small. You are not here to repeat the past. You are here to awaken, to remember, and to embody. And that journey will not be easy, but it will be worth it. Because on the other side of your fear is everything you've ever wanted to feel. Not happiness, not success, but wholeness. And when you are whole, nothing can touch you. Not because you're invincible, but because you are real. So, as we end this journey together, I invite you to stop looking for answers outside. The secret Jung discovered, the one he lived and breathed, is this: the treasure you seek is in the cave you fear to enter. The transformation you crave is already unfolding. You don't need to force it. You just need to allow it, to trust it, to become it. Ask yourself with deep sincerity, am I willing to face the truth of who I am, no matter what it costs? Because that is the instant transformation Jung spoke of, not a change in circumstance, but a revelation of soul. And once you touch it, you'll never want to go back.